Think of this. Floyd Mayweather is still relevant, still watching boxing, and he's still creating attention, and he's still making money. But his biggest challenge may no longer be inside the ring. It is trust, loyalty, business, and legacy. The fights with Pacquiao or Mike Tyson could generate hundreds of millions. But money, that also creates risk. People compete, people manipulate, and sometimes people betray. Floyd built an empire, but no one can run an empire alone. So perhaps his next evolution is not another fight. It is building better systems, better businesses, better entrepreneurs, and turning his boxing knowledge into something that survives him. So I saw a recent interview with Floyd Mayweather, and I think there was some real interesting context. There were insights on his boxing. There were insights on boxing, entrepreneurship, and ultimately it was his perspective. So let's give some perspective and let's analyze this accordingly, because I think there's some things to learn here. So when Floyd was asked about his return, he stated that time will tell. I think there's a few things to acknowledge. And the first thing to acknowledge is that the proposal of the Mike Tyson fight, I know that people have issues with the credibility. So there's a credibility backlash due to the age. But the objective reality is that this fight would be massive. It would be huge. Floyd has his brand, Tyson has his brand. You put both of these brands together and the interest will be huge. Also, you have the Pacquiao fight, which is also massive. And this fight would be seen as more competitive, less theatrical. And I think this could be a really, really good fight. Now, both these fights would have economic and cultural impact. And I'm assuming, and this is an assumption, I'm assuming that Netflix would pick these up. And this would make the fights accessible. And, you know, they could be significant moments, not just for the boxing fan, but for the casual fan, for the Netflix fan as well. As we know, Floyd's record is impeccable. So every fight carries brand risk because part of his branding is the perfection, is that he's never lost. When we look at estimates, this is just assumptions really, but when you look at Mayweather Pacquiao, I think there's estimates of between 200 to 350 million in terms of value. And I think the Mayweather Tyson one is 150 to 300 million. So that's a massive ballpark. But it's important to recognize something here. And that's most professional champions in their prime can't earn nowhere near this type of money. And what does that mean? It means that Floyd Mayweather is still very relevant. And that's why everyone is still talking about him. So then the next, or one of the statements was about Floyd's paying as a part of his cultural identity, saying that cash is part of the culture. I think what he's referring to is hip hop culture. I could be wrong here, but Floyd Mayweather has a relationship with hip hop. It is relatively quite synonymous. And of course, when we look at Floyd Mayweather, Floyd Money Mayweather, money is part of the brand. Overconsumption is part of the brand. But overconsumption by its very nature is a weakness. So, and maybe I'm slightly changing the context there because it's probably that consumption is part of his brand, but he's ventured allegedly into overconsumption, which then becomes a bad thing. So is it time to change the brand? Is it time to make alterations to the brand? Or is it just the massive part of consumption is just a byproduct of Floyd Mayweather's life? But I guess he's acknowledging here that it's part of the culture, part of his culture. And I think that shows, at the very least, self-awareness. But it's self-awareness of a problem. But how do you deal with that problem? Because not only is it part of his culture, it's a part of his identity, part of his branding, and that can be a significant issue. And then the next part of the conversation is about our Haymon, who he sees as a father figure, a silent music tour partner. And he was a silent partner in multiple music tours. So it wasn't just boxing business, it was also music business. To give context, Al Haymon is a businessman and a boxing manager. He's involved, to my understanding, the music industry as well as boxing business. He managed Floyd Mayweather, and I believe he also managed Vernon Forrest at the beginning of his boxing managerial journey. At this time, there is a legal battle. When I looked at the video, Floyd was respectful. He showed courtesy. And I think it's important. It's important to handle contention with manners if we can. I actually like the way he dealt with that. Also acknowledging him as a father figure, even though there's this legal battle, there's this contention, gives not only appropriate context, but it means that Floyd is able to look at the situation objectively. Yes, they're in some type of battle, whether it's personal, legal, both, etc., but he can still acknowledge the importance that this person had on his life. And this must be a very difficult time for him. And then the next part of the conversation is about what is labeled the scammer, allegedly, and the 10-year betrayal. 10-year betrayal from someone in his team, someone he trusted completely, and they turned out to be a con artist. I think it's important to acknowledge something here, and that is this. Winning is a very serious business. It's a very serious business, and within capitalism, capitalism is competition. Part of competition is winning, and people will lie to win. That's the premise of the argument. And you could argue that for some people, manipulation is a byproduct of being competitive. Many people will put the money over the morals because in capitalism, money has very high value. Which leads to this, which puts us in this point of how do we judge someone's character? How do we judge someone's character effectively, particularly when it comes to business? How do we trust someone? Should we trust people? And how do you run a financial empire independently without trusting not only one person, but trusting a multitude of people, whether it's managers, whether it's people you employ, whether it's a regional manager, a CEO, etc. Is there a guidance, an effective guidance on how to do this? Is there an effective course on how to do this? And fundamentally, are humans loyal? And if they are loyal, what are they loyal to? And it's a difficult one because people can turn, and the more money there is on the table, it appears that, there's more money, there's more problems, but there's more opportunities, and people will manipulate to get those opportunities. I guess the point that I'm making here is that this can happen to anybody. And the more money you have, the more successful business or the more successful businesses you have, the more danger you're in being manipulated. And so much of the focus from the media seems to be on Floyd allegedly having money problems. But what about the importance of loyalty? And what about the fact that there are people that are manipulative, where you can work so hard to build a fortune, and then some people can just manipulate you to try and take it away from you? And that is scary, very scary. Now, moving on, Mayweather then speaks about Mayweather Promotions, and he has new people behind the scenes. So the old characters have gone, and now there's people behind the scenes. So he has this vision that he's going to, make everyone an entrepreneur. And I guess the important part here is, how is he going to turn people into entrepreneurs? What's the strategy? Entrepreneurship is glamorized in popular culture. It is definitely glamorized, but it's actually a very difficult thing to do. So the question the problem here isn't the admiration or the vision of turning people into an entrepreneur. That's very noble. But I guess the question is, do you have the right strategy for transforming people into entrepreneurs in this modern day contemporary society? Because capitalism is changing and modern society is changing and modern ways of making money is changing. Anyway, let's kind of get back to the boxing. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, wouldn't it be great? And maybe he's already doing this, but it would be great if Floyd Mayweather got into not just education, but education from a boxing perspective. Imagine some type of boxing trainer degree or an apprenticeship or something that was accredited. That would be that would be epic. Maybe I'm just talking from a personal perspective here, but some type of accreditation that has the Mayweather name, that has that type of validity. Because remember, when we speak about Floyd Mayweather, you know, the credentials as a great fighter, one of the best to ever do it. His credentials are so high, so he could leverage that to some type of educational platform. And that would be really interesting. That in itself could potentially create some entrepreneurs. And then we go to when Floyd Mayweather's talking about the top fighters, he names Benavidez, calls him a hell of a fighter. Indeed, he's a great fighter. And he also names Keishon Davis, Shakur, Devin Haney. And he mentions Japanese fighters, but doesn't mention their names. I'm assuming, and it is an assumption, I'm assuming when you're mentioning Japanese boxers, you must be mentioning Inoue, because number one, he may be pound for pound the best boxer in the world. And by default, he is the best Japanese boxer in the world currently right now, or maybe that's ever lived, depending on who you ask. So he makes that reference to, you know, great boxers in Japan. Of course, Keishon Davis is getting a lot of attention. I really need to look into some of his fights. And Benavidez has really established himself. And I guess with regards to Benavidez, it's how much further is he going to go? Because he's already achieved a certain level of greatness, but how much further can he go? That's going to be an interesting insight. But what it shows here is that Floyd is very much in tune with the boxing universe. And then he speaks about Haney and Rowley, you know, both champions. He watched them grow up around his gym. And he says he's excited but neutral. I'm assuming that means that he's excited to see their development, but I'm assuming he has no business involvement with either fighter. So therefore that makes him neutral. And he also revealed that Zab Judah helped him prep for the Pacquiao fight. And he still sees him in LA. And again, this just shows that Floyd still has that passion. He still has that passion for boxing. And he is still involved in boxing in a major way. He knows who the major players are. He knows who the major players are. And even people like Rowley and Devin Haney, who are now fighters that are very recognizable, very viral. He saw them grow up. He saw them master their craft. He saw them go through their stages of evolution. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. And that means I'm interested in your thoughts, I'm interested in your perspectives, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, press like, hype, and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.